Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy.
What's up, dudes? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Sean Murphy, aka Murph. Navy SEAL, 22 years of service, Senior Chief retired. He founded Hit the Surf in 2018, and you can catch them on all social channels. He's also the VP of Corporate Leadership at UHP. To take a deeper dive, go check out hitthesurf.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. So I always kick it off with an interesting, because we don't get into really your service, which is a whole, awesome deal. And that might be for another time. But one thing I like to touch on is, when we do these transition, a lot of these guys in corporate America, they don't understand truly what it takes to get out of the service, like the effort. It's not just a smooth transition for most guys. Some have it downright, most don't. What was your transition like?
If you could take the most pothole-filled dirt road and drive down it with either a car or bicycle with no shocks on, I could see where I wanted to go, or at least I thought I wanted to go, but it was so bumpy and rough that I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to repair all the damage I did from barreling down this rough road that was on, that I literally went on really fast. As you know, most of us, a lot of veterans, as soon as they make that decision, it's like, I want to see how fast I can go down this road because I need to get there. And that's really what it was like, is just full speed, full send, and just bumping up and down that road.
Yeah, that's about right. It's about what 90% of guys say right out of the gate. Different context, but it is. It's difficult to transition out because there's a sense of loss. There's a sense of purpose loss. You're not with those brothers anymore. Something I realized took me probably 8 years to realize this, is that just because I'm not on a team or not in the military anymore doesn't mean I'm not part of that brotherhood. And all you got to do is pick up the phone and call them and be like, "Hey, I'm coming into town. Let's get after it." And then you realize you're right back in Schitt's Creek. So it's pretty awesome. Did you always know growing up that you were an entrepreneur type?
No, that's a interesting question, because I grew up like really poor, and I had four brothers that we didn't have anything. So we were very entrepreneur minded, that if we wanted something, we had to either build it, pretend that we had it, or just take it from one of the brothers that did have it. And so we were always finding a way to build something. And that is how we entertained ourselves. That's how we found value in what we were doing. So it kind of, but I didn't recognize it until I actually had to stop and think, what does Sean Murphy do outside the military? And that's where it kind of gave me that bug and that passion of, well, let's figure it out. Let's not, wait to be told to do something. Let's go out and build this airplane while we're flying it off the cliff.
I highly respect what guys like you do, because, I only served 8 years, so it was easier for me to transition my personal belief just because I didn't have an entire career. Whereas guys like you, 22 years in, that is your whole young adult life. And so the biggest thing is starting over and right after that. And then I look at this sometimes and I'm like, how does somebody who served 22 years in special operations get out and go work for somebody who's 20 years old who just graduated from college? And I'm like, how does that work? It's crazy. Yeah. And that's why I think most of us go the entrepreneurial route, because one, you're smart, you have high IQ, high EQ, and you've got passion towards things that you're interested in, and you see gaps that you want to fill. So let's get into the first part of it, Hit the Surf. So let's talk about you founding it, what exactly you do, what people need to know.
So Hit the Surf, the name in and of itself, you went through BUD/S, so you can understand. But when I was going through BUD/S, and as we were tormented with the surf, we were always told, go hit the surf. And at first, when I was going through, I felt like that was punishment. But in reality, I took the suffering of where we were, whether it was on the grinder or on log PT, whatever it was that we were doing, it felt like you were stuck, like you were at whatever threshold that you mentally and physically met, that you were stuck. And so when they told us to hit the surf, I was like, great, now I have to go and do something else. Well, really what that was, I jumped in, and that cold water that hit me, it felt like I could take that breath of air that was like that hot feeling in my lungs and go underwater and come back out and let all that out. So it was like a refreshing experience to where now I was reset. I could realign my focus to get back after this next challenge. It was like I put what's done behind me and move on to that next challenge. And so I formed the company Hit the Surf because later on in my career in 2018, I had made friends with a NASCAR driver, Austin Dillon, and he would call me. We would talk about things and just team dynamics. And through the SEAL teams, you get the opportunity. You're thrust into leadership positions. You have to build teams, form them, and get them on the right direction to focus on vision and mission accomplishment. And so I would talk about those things with him, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come out and do a team building thing for my pit crews?" And so that's where Hit the Surf was truly formed. I said, "Well, I'd have to like figure that out on forming a company and all that stuff." And his dad, Mike Dillon, was the one that actually kind of sat me down. I was like, "You need to tighten this up because this is something that is very needed." And I went out there and knocked it out of the park, and I had a great time giving back into people that were thirsty for team building, which didn't seem like, I thought everybody already had that, but it was very apparent that they just wanted to learn from somebody else from a different perspective, and formed Hit the Surf. After that, I did more of the team building, and now I do corporate leadership development, which is the same thing from a leadership perspective on how do you align yourself, because I believe that the person is the position and not the other way around. You're not going to go into a leadership position and all of a sudden just magically become a leader. You've got to form yourself to be a good person in that position so that people will lead or follow your lead. And that's what I bring to people at Hit the Surf. But now I actually have transitioned that part of my business over to University of Health and Performance. But Hit the Surf was the beginning of my entrepreneur spirit of really tapping into giving back into what I felt was valuable to myself and bringing in SEALs, because I like to bring in other SEALs and put them in front of an audience and have them talk about the things that they know, like the tacit knowledge. Communication is an easy one for them. The different forms of communication that we use in the SEAL teams and why it's important. Now, all special operations and veterans get that, but you're kind of, in my opinion, when you're inside the military, you're kind of blind to the value in it. And then when you get out, transferring that knowledge over into the civilian sector is pretty powerful and valuable when you look at it from a different lens. And that's what I did with Hit the Surf, is really help people get a grasp of the different styles and depth of leadership in the military, and then also bring it out into the civilian world to help package that up to where they get to see it and the person feels valued on what they've been doing in the military.
It's interesting because I as you were talking, I think about, like say we're building something in the team, and it's just the normal day for us is to consistently do these things together as a team. And so you don't even look at it as team building, but to actually be able to step back from that and say, this is something we do, and this is valuable to the civilian world. That's pretty intriguing. I've been asked a couple times to do some team building stuff for companies, and I'm like, whoa, that's not my world. Like, I don't know the first thing about that. And of course I was very young outside of the service, so I'm like, I don't know what I offer you. So I was like, I declined respectfully. So what does that look like for you to come in and do a team building with any corporation? Is it a one day? Is it a comprehensive week? What does that look like?
It varies between what the needs are. That's usually my first phase, is discovering what needs they have and really getting profiles of the individual, the company, kind of the culture of the company, and identify where there might be some disconnect. A lot of it is communication. That's what I've learned with many of the companies that I've talked to, that communication's big on what misaligns the vision and the culture. And so I'll discover all that. And that's when I bring into discovering self first. And then as we pull that apart, to recognize how that individual fits into the team. And when they do that, they can recognize their responses and how they respond to things. And it's very different between individuals, like the introvert and extrovert, finding out where you are on that scale, not just introverted and extroverted, but on a very deep level, and how you play a part in the team, because that's important. If you have, just for an example, is when somebody comes to me and says there's this leader that is not pulling their weight, and I kind of want to say, well, why is that? And if they can't give me the answer, then I'll interview that person and try and pull as much information out. And it may not be that person's not pulling their weight; they're just an introvert, and they're internalizing a lot more. And people need expectations; they need to understand what you need of them, and in reverse, you also have to let the leaders know what you expect and need of them. And so when I package that up, now I put that into not just awareness, but also now high stress. And what I mean high stress, that to us, jumping out of airplanes and stuff, we're kind of unique and different. But also on the other side of that, when you put stress on that in a civilian capacity, it's just putting them through an event where they can struggle together and see these different avenues that they go through and how they respond. And then now you can take that back and we carve out individual time for them to package that up and see how it plays in their mission and their vision and realign some things. So now you get to humanize everybody and sit down and talk person to person to see what is it that you need? Where do we want to go? These are objectives when we come out of this. And now you get to take it back to your workplace and implement these changes, because I pride myself in not giving you a PowerPoint. We're PowerPointed to death right now. Everything that we do is set behind a screen. Well, let's detach from that and have an experience together. And that deep experiences is what ingrains into you. I need to action something that I'm going to learn and grow from as a person and as a professional. Because if I told you just to go watch this PowerPoint, it's just the same thing as anybody else. Like, you're going to click through it. You're going to your mind's going to wander, and then you're going to forget it. So about a month later, you're like, what was that again? I don't really remember. And so I like to bring that experience to them from a full package of individually identifying who they are, bring that into the team, have a unique experience, and then follow up to package it up for them to have something as they move forward.
Wow. That's deep, man. I mean, that takes effort, a lot of time, and really breaking down all the different types. I mean, that's pure what that company has to be completely honest with you and transparent in order for you to truly achieve that, which is really cool to get into the inner workings of it. What's your typical demographic look like a company? Are you a mass company, huge company, smaller, mid-size? What do you typically look for as a client?
Well, since I took over as VP at University of Health and Performance, we've got Fortune 1 companies that come through. So it hit the surf. I've done smaller companies all the way up to, like I said, Fortune 1 companies. It's not a set demographic. It's not really set, because I've got law enforcement that I'll help with CQC or even leadership development. Same thing there. But then I have like different companies that are different sizes that want me to come in and either do a speaking engagement or even just the team building thing. Now, before, when I didn't have UHP, I had to go to them, and now we have 1,000 acres with all these resources to bring them in. So it varies between companies. It's really about where they are in their growth, because a lot of companies get stuck in growth, and they need that to help pull themselves out of, like I said before, being so stuck behind a computer. So the demographic, it varies. It's kind of nice to see too that you get to hear from different perspectives, the different pain points that companies go through, and help them move through that.
Okay. So you're now actually the VP of corporate leadership at UHP. You're still doing Hit the Surf though as well, or is that paused?
No, I still do that. But what I've worked out is now I come over to UHP and just bring my clients there to have a great experience. But I also have, because same thing I mentioned before, if there's a contract, I'll help hire SEALs in. I'm a part of it, but I also will 1099 SEALs that I feel they need to be put in those positions to either, most of them are out or at least close to getting out, and I bring them in. I think you had Gus on your show, Carl.
Yeah.
Gus. He's been a big one of mine that I rely on quite a bit, because he's so good at what he does. And for example, he speaks Portuguese. Like, it's so crazy that team guys can do the most random things. And I have a PBR team, the Carolina Cowboys, that I do their team camp every year. And he comes in and knocks it out of the park. And he speaks Portuguese to these Brazilians.
Yep.
That just really, I mean, without him, the whole camp would be not nearly as good. And so all the other things I do with Hit the Surf, I still bring in other SEALs to help, because that to me is like my way of giving back into the community. That was the whole idea, is like bringing SEALs in to show their true value and what they can offer to other people, and then get a glimpse in what it's like on the outside to learn from these people that I say this a lot, and I love and I stand behind it. But we all defended this great nation. Well, somebody made this nation great while we're defending it, and so while they're waking up and struggling to make ends meet every single day, being a warrior on that side of things, we've got to tap back into that and recognize that to learn from them, because there's a lot to be gained on both sides, from the warriors in the military and the warriors in the workforce. That it's a yin yang thing. We got to be mutually supporting. Somebody's going to make the country great, or else none of us would be in the military. We'd be just a third world country of warlords and us kind of spiraling down. So we got to recognize that, and that's a great way for both people to recognize the value that each other holds.
It's awesome, man. I'm really interested in this new range, this 1,000-yard property. Let's talk a little bit about that. What exactly do you do there? Because I don't know anything about it yet. So what do you got?
That's okay. Like I said, this is my second day in the seat. I'm also learning more and more. So University of Health and Performance was founded by a Navy vet, Matt Hesse. He's really innovative. He's grown several companies and sold them for a large amount of money. And he has a knack for creating vision. And he's bought about 1,000 acres out here in Bentonville, Arkansas, right in Walmart's backyard. And he hires, what really attracted me to this company was the amount of professionals, a lot of veterans, most of the veterans that are there that have good presence. So they have it figured out. Just many veterans do, but these are some high performers, Green Berets, Rangers, you name it. There's somebody there, mainly Army. There's not too many Navy guys there, but it has like a Patriot Pathway course. That's kind of that is one of the programs that I'm in charge of. That is the transition program. So imagine reinventing TAPS. So for veterans, they get to come in and have real value in what they're going through, and not just transactional. It's a little bit of relationship building. So you're networking there, discovering who you are, which is when you get out of the military. What's great about Patriot Pathway is you get to not redefine, but rediscover who you are. And when you do that, you also get to set your goals, reset your goals to where now you have a clear vision and alignment of what's important to you. Because if you were trying to appease the military like you were when you were active duty, you're not going to go very far, because you've got to hang up that uniform. You got to respect it. It's now going to be a plaque on your wall, but you've got to find out what's important to you. And that's one of the cool things at University of Health and Performance is it's free for veterans. They come out for a 5-day immersive course, all inclusive, with a world-renowned chef. Like, he's awesome. Like, I love just eating with this guy. And so you get the opportunity to really see what it's like to be disconnected, focused with other veterans, and see the struggles and challenges, but now package yourself up to where you have a long-standing value. And then the other side of that is the leadership experience, or deployments as we call them. You get veterans or leaders from companies to come out, do the team building and leadership development to help them come together with some really cool experiences. The camp fireside chats, where you're not, as we all know, like most people that sit around a campfire with intent, you can discover a lot. You can actually go deep and discuss values and really find what you find important to you. And then you take that and what I mentioned earlier with the experience, you pressurize things. We've got a helicopter out there, a Huey, that people get to fly around in. We got Humvees, a big 5-ton ranges and stuff that we do. But it's not about that stuff. That's the cool, fun experience. But it's also what you're learning through that process throughout this property that, like I said, it's brand new. A lot of it's brand new. So you get really quality lodging, food, the people to experience this vision of rediscover like what your purpose is. And not just as a veteran, but also as a leader, and connect and to humanize yourselves and find that value in the future, not just now, but in the future where you're going. So you have a good path. And it's like the 1,000 acres, like when I go out there, there's a beautiful creek that runs through there. It's called Spavinaw Creek. And it's so incredibly peaceful. And we do dinners down there, and that's where we do like a river plunge and a lot of cool, fun things. That's beautiful. It's so you detach. I can't even express in words how nice it is to detach and just have peace. And a lot of executives need that because their days are crazy. Even just trying to pull the information from them, their days are so crazy that for them to detach, it's almost like a huge weight off their shoulders. I don't know if you remember the term "take a wrap off." You know, whenever it's for them to take a wrap off and be able to breathe and like focus on not only themselves but the team and where they want to go, and then have a fun, unique experience while setting goals in this. And like I said, Chef Wes that's out there does a phenomenal job of making meals catered specifically to them. And he's so good at it. Like for me, it would be very overwhelming that like a day before someone comes and says they've got a barley allergy or you name whatever allergy. And he's like, got it. And he creates this beautiful meal for these people to sit down and enjoy. And it's just like, I love the campus out there. I love the people. It's a great place to be.
That sounds unreal, man, because you're right. Detaching is huge. I mean, I know this. I'm a CEO of a very small outfit, so it's not like I have thousands of people that I have to worry about, but you get so inundated with just the daily grind that you make excuses for yourself not to pull away from that and say, man, if I want to get better and I want to clean this up and actually have some of my time and life back, I've got to stop, but I'm going to do that later. I'm going to do that later. So keep kicking it down the can. Or kicking it down the road. The other thing that was really cool to hear is, so when I got out of the service, I never knew who I was. I don't think guys like you and I go in early, young, you know, you're serving a mission that's greater than you. 9/11 kicked off a lot of us to do this. And so you never, as a kid, really care about yourself. You're just like, cool, whatever. And then you get into the SEAL teams and you realize this is not about me. This is about this brotherhood and this is about a greater mission. So you never discover who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating that they said, oh man, you're going to be a great navigator when I failed navigation at Buds. And I'm like, you want me to navigate the platoon? Okay, step it up, leader. Let's go. And I was like, okay, cool. But getting out and having to discover that. And unfortunately, I had to do that on my own. And it was a very, very big struggle. Mm-hmm. So being able to have guys like you who have done a lot more than me in the service, who can actually take that and pull all the beauty out of what the military provides us and then tailor that to corporate America, to people in the civilian world who have never seen that type of chaos or the camaraderie. That's amazing stuff. I mean, you know, my hat's off to you, man. That is hard work to come in and
so
see.
Fulfilling. It's what you mentioned about like the small things. Land nav is the perspective that how do I take that information and transfer it over to, you know, helping align a vision for a company? Yeah, we fail at things because we think that we have to be perfect. You strive for perfection and obtain excellence. So how you do that is taking like land nav, for example, you orient yourself on the map, you understand where you want to go, and then you continue to have milestones or continue to check things along the way so that you're looking at the long-term vision of where you want to go, but you also need to make small incremental changes as you're navigating through. So you can take all those things and put it into perspective with whether it's in your own life or even in a leadership role on where am I at on this map? Let me orient myself and take what bearing I need to take to get to where I need to be to reset and really make that navigation, that route that we're going through mean something. And I'm not just navigating to navigate. Like, are you being lost? And that's how a lot of the things that we do in the military is you're kind of oriented already. Every time you take over leadership position, there's a SORM, that outlines exactly what is expected of you. More importantly, you have peers that are guiding you that have either been in that position or are going to be in that position. You've got a lot of mentors that surround you continuously throughout your entire career as a veteran. And when you get out, you don't have that. You're kind of like going 1,000 miles an hour. And as we know, you get off the train keeps moving. It's got a destination to go to.
Yep.
And you're kind of like, that was an awesome ride. And then you turn around and you're like, oh, what's next? Like, where do I go from here? And that feeling of stopping is, I think, what gets a lot of people of, well, where do I go now? Like, how do I was so used to being on that train. I knew the train, everything that I did in the military, something was given to me. Everything was like kind of given to me in a structure. Now I have no structure. I got to rebuild that structure, but it needs to be for you as the individual, and orient yourself on that map and say, where am I at and where do I need to go? And that's what I truly feel passionate about, is like, I've been through some dark places since transitioning, and I know I'm not alone, because the conversations that I have through Beyond the Brotherhood, and that's a lot of what I like to do, is give back and say, we did this as a team. Let's do this now on the outside to help each other succeed. And now at UHP, I could do that for all veterans, is help them find their purpose. And the team that Matt had hired for Patriot Pathway is phenomenal. The Army guys, the Green Berets, the Rangers, even the some of the doctorate people that have doctorate degrees, or whatever it's called, doctorates.
Yep.
The behavioral science behind it, they're so good at what they do and help realign people to give them confidence. And no longer do you have to worry about the pressures and stresses of being in the military and then pretending that life is going to be figured out. We help kind of align that. And that's what's really cool to see, is being able to give back into the veteran community that need it. Like, we just need a couple of people to help us, guide us along, and be a sounding board for quite a bit. That's what I needed. That's what I had surrounded myself with. And like I said before, let's build this airplane while we're flying, so that whenever people are ready to take that flight, that they have somebody that's building that thing for them.
What I love about what you do, and so we come from a place of, true emergency, true danger in the SEAL teams. And when you get out, you come to realize that during the day, if an email comes in, we act like it's the emergency room, and we got to jam out, push that thing out immediately. And you're stressing over this, and then it compiles on you, compounds. And, talking with guys in leadership positions, I'm like, what are your true problems? Like, what are your true situation or emergencies? Because emails are not one of them. Phone calls are not one of them. I mean, these are things that we make up as emergencies, but they're not quite. And so it took me a long time to learn that too, because I got out and I was like, everything's an emergency. I got to get all this stuff going. I think even just myself, like, even being out 12 years now, 13 years, got it, 15 years. I think there's a huge degree of, guys like us can go through your program as well. Mm-hmm. Because it's just, there's so much to learn. I've been kind of going at it, fake it till you make it, and then learning it. And then all of a sudden you're getting to a place where you're like, okay, I got this, I think, to the minimum, but I could always learn more. And that's, again, I always say to guys, like, if you go through business or any kind of stuff outside of the service, like you're going through day one of SEAL training with that motivation and energy and excitement to, like, persevere, you're going to absolutely destroy it. You're going to crush it, because you want it, but you got to make that cognizant decision.
You made a very strong point, which is, you can always learn more. And I look at the people that are most successful are not the ones that, hey, I am stuck in my ways, I have figured it all out. Nope, that's not the people that I see find success the most. It's those leaders that are willing to learn, to step outside their comfort zone and explore. And that's truly what I see make a significant difference on those leaders, that they probably feel stuck. And those that are stuck in themselves of, like, nope, I'm set in my ways, they don't break through that next level. They don't break through and make strides, because learning is we're going to learn until we're back, meeting our maker. Is, if you don't keep that mindset of, I need to learn, I need to continue to grow, you're going to become stagnant. And we all know what that happens. When you become stagnant, you get left behind. You just do. Companies don't need somebody that's just going to sit on their hands. They need people that lean forward and continue to grow. I don't care if you're the lowest person on the task org, the bottom person, the brand new hire, or if you're the top person in the company, because we look at trends on how every organization is going to have their trends, and it evolves. They're going to change. They're going to move. So you need to be kind of the same way as a person. You got to continue to learn and grow about yourself, because you're not the same person you were when you're 16 or 22 or 30 or 40. You're not the same person. You got to continue to learn and grow. So that was a powerful point to say, learning is a continuous process. You're not not done. You can continue to do things. And that's what I love seeing is when people tap into their true potential and realize what they're capable of, because they let go of the hype and fear of, well, what if? Right. Well, what if? What if you do well? What if you discover a part of yourself that you didn't before? And now you're happier, you're more confident in yourself, and you can do those things, which I love to see pull out of people. And this is something that a lot of people squirm when I say a cold plunge or a river plunge. That is something that I did it too before I went into Hell Week. The hype of Hell Week is something I love to reference when, if you hype yourself out, your brain, I think your brain is a magnet, and you have positive and negative, and how you lean is where your brain's going to go, because it's going to go that way. So if you're negative and the hype is like, well, I can figure out all these reasons to get to that negative side of things of why I can't do something. But if you're like, well, what if I could? Why not me? Why not me? And if you can do that, that's usually where people get beyond and give out and let go of hype and fear and say, well, what if? What if I can? Why not me? Let me give it a shot. And seeing them get through a cold plunge or a river plunge and being like, yeah, that wasn't so bad. What was I thinking? And something clicks. I do the same thing with underwater knot tying, which is funny because I've taken people underwater knot tying and I love to see them. You want me to go down there and tie a knot around this line? I'm like, yeah. Well, why? I can't do that. Immediately you start seeing people, and then like the tension and anxiety builds up, and it's taking them through that process to get them on the other side. When they do it and they get through that, now as you're exercising, you're building that muscle memory of working through those mental barriers to find that next avenue to get you where you need to go and show you what you truly are capable of. I can take them on the surf and say, let's hold our breath for 10 seconds. They can do it. Okay. You can tie a knot in 10 seconds underwater. I promise you can. And then working them through that and exercising that muscle in your brain that says, I can do things. And it helps unlock where they need to go and how they can get there and not give in to the hype and the fear of, I can't grow. I can't do anything else. I'm stuck here. It's like, no. You're much more capable than you think. Let's just do it. Let's work on this together.
See, it's a beautiful perspective for you to come out and say that kind of stuff, because going back to Hell Week again, most of us had never been through that kind of stuff before. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's so much more gas in my tank than I ever thought was there. And now I know that I have unlimited potential if I continue to move forward like this. And so does everybody else. I always say there's a lot more SEAL could-be's out there. They just weren't interested in the job, but they have the ability to do it. And so, people always say, well, I could have never done that. I was like, you're sure? Yeah, with that attitude, you're right. There's no way.
Exactly.
But
we weren't done after Hell Week either. It's you once you got through Hell Week, you proved to yourself, and now you're like, oh crap, now I gotta go do water hydros. Now I gotta go do pool comp. I gotta go do third phase. Like there's more to do. And I love that trains that, and most veterans go through that in boot camp and then whatever selection course, Q course, and all these different the selection process that they go through, they make it through. They're still not done. They got to go learn to be a Marine. You got to go learn to be a Ranger, a Green Beret. You got to learn to be a SEAL, EOD, diver. All these things you prove to yourself that you can. Now you go do it, and you continue to learn and grow. It's almost like you built that muscle memory of finding value in yourself, that you're capable of doing something. And now I get to go work with these awesome people that can do it too. Man, how cool is that you can be a warrior with your compadres that prove something in selection, and now you're on the path to let's continue to grow and keep this team going. We built that muscle memory of I'm capable of doing something more than what I thought I could do.
That's legit, man. One other thing that I want to touch on that I think is really smart and sound on your part is you didn't just get out and doing business. You got involved with cause. And I think it's so key for everybody in the military or anybody who put a uniform on, fire service, EMS, police, anybody. I would say the first thing you need to do is look for a cause outside of the service and just help them. Volunteer as much time or as minimum time as you have to offer. Volunteer with them just to keep connected with the community and giving back, because you'll find the mission is such a greater purpose than ourselves, and it makes you feel whole again, or at least somewhat whole, depending on how much you immerse yourself. You got involved with the charity Beyond the Brotherhood, And I want to talk a little bit about what you do there. I know we had Drew Forsberg Furby on, and he's really shed some light on it, but I would love from your perspective to talk about not just what you do at Beyond the Brotherhood, but why it's so important to you to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I ran across a LinkedIn post with Jimmy May on what was going on in our community. We had started to see, really, we say good dudes, but there's so many good guys in the SEAL teams. It's not just um, there's a small fraction of good guys. There's a lot of good guys that were actually killing themselves, and when they would get out, they would make that unfortunate decision. And so instead of us using that as like a sad puppy dog story, it's how do we make a difference? And I can't say for 100% certain I can solve this, but I can do something. Just like we said before, let's figure this out on what we can do better. Not necessarily let's pretend that we're gonna have the solution. Let's start working towards finding something that's going to give back into the community that can help them. And I immediately saw the post, and he said, "I'm forming Beyond the Brotherhood." And I told him, I was like, "Hey, I'm kind of already doing that." Was kind of what I wanted to do with Hit the Surf, was to give guys an avenue to find value and purpose outside the SEAL teams. It wasn't just putting on kit, body armor, and going out and shooting a gun, and jumping out of airplanes. It was something that they can find value in, that they can pull from their career and have a next chapter in their life. And that's what we went after is, well, let's not pretend that we're psychologists and doctors and can analyze a brain. We know is the experience they've been through. So let's take whatever we can and build a package up that gets them in a position where they can leave the community and find a new community. What I said earlier was the warriors that made this country great. We need to tap into that and create a network, because when you're going through the SEAL teams, you don't have a network.
Yeah.
And now you get out, and now that train that blew past you, which was your network, you're kind of looking around. And like me, I had a family. I have to try, and I have not, the people that was looking at me before were my teammates. And we had a common mission that we go do. Now I turn around, I've got my family looking at me, which is heavy, because you had, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You had job security, you had social security, you had all the things that were filling you up, and you didn't have to worry about that. Now you turn around and you lose a massive part of you, that you have a family looking at you is like, "Hey, where are we going?" And you don't want to fail. And so that's where we're like, let's build something that is a community, not only of SEALs and people within the civilian networks that we're building that want to give back. You've got everybody that is standing behind you. So you have those conversations of, let's find what you value most and start working from there, so that you don't get lost and end up taking a job that's going to make you even more miserable. That once you lost that, I like to think of it as, you left a platoon, instead of you wandering all alone by yourself, we're going to put you back into a platoon. And so you have these people that you can come in and talk to. And that's what we formed to give back to the community. So when they get out, we make sure that we screen and select the good dudes to make sure they have character, because we don't want to spend time on somebody that's just going to come in and be selfish. We want to make sure they're right, they're serious, they're intentful, they have good character, good reputation, that we can help them plug them into society with giving them a leg up. Because I'll be honest, TAPS for me, I did it during COVID, was the worst experience because, one, I was so disconnected, and I made a decision to retire, and I only had like 6 months. And then I get this sheet that says, "Oh, you should have been like prepping for 2 years to retire." And I was like, I got 6 months. And so I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And that's not to go out and find a job. That's not, or it is to find a job, but it's also to get all your military records and stuff in order, so that when you, that last day, and they kind of like, "Well, here's your DD-214, see you later." Now you're trying to build a network. Now you're trying to figure out, what does Sean Murphy do on the outside? And so that's where Jimmy and I were like, let's try and help guys as early as possible, that they're thinking about it. We've talked people into staying in too, is, hey, maybe it's a better decision for you to stay in or extend. Get all your stuff in one sock, make it right, make it tight, and then now we can get you set up on the outside. So when that time frame does come, you're not scrambling. And that's what the real value is. I've seen is, when they get out, they have, Jimmy and I will go and search for jobs and make sure that what's right for you is is right for you. So you're putting the right person in the right seat, not taking a stressed out individual that's a high performer and putting them in a bad position where they're not going to be a high performer. They're going to start failing. And now that's a spiral. You lost that platoon. You lost that value and purpose. And then you put them over here where they're not a high performer. That's a recipe for disaster. And that's what we're trying to cut off, is to make sure that they have a community that they can tap into, that's going to take care of them, that looks at them the same way that we did when you walked in the team room, of awesome guys and gals that are going to mentor and coach you to get you to where you need to go. And that's what we formed with Beyond the Brotherhood.
Dude, I love that, man. It's so important. You know, and going back to your thing about not having the uniform anymore, you know, something I've tried to implement in my company is everybody mandatorily every day has to wear brown t-shirts and UDT shorts to work. And it's very effective. No, I'm kidding. It would be sweet though.
Man, that would be interesting to see a bunch of people walking in brown shirts and UDT shorts.
Well, things have changed in my body since being a team guy, so I'm pretty good on that.
That fanny pack that just seems to never go away.
I've gotten more hair too. It sucks in the wrong places.
Yep.
So, you know, I love that, just being able to support guys transitioning out of the service, connecting them with other people, you know, business leaders as well. Mm-hmm. And just giving them an identified, you know, helping plan here. Like, you know, like we said, it's so important. Extend. If you're not 100% ready and you don't have an executed plan that you know is locked, or at least pretty close to, hold for a second. Still continue on the journey of pre-planning your outside or your exit, but hold on for a bit, because promise you, if you're not ready, it's going to be harder. And number two, everybody who gets out, regardless if you did 8 years or you did a full 22-year career, you yearn for one more day in the uniform just because it was so great. So I think it's awesome advice. And, you know, having a group like you, God, I would have loved to have had that in 2010 when I got out. I hear that from not just guys within our time frame, but I'm very intentional. If I meet a former SEAL, if they're in my area, like we'll go out and have lunch. There's a couple of guys that I've met here that said the exact same thing. One was a UDT guy, and they're like, "Hey, I wish I had that when I got out." And that's very common. I think we all, like you said before, one more day. When I was in, people said, "You're going to want one more day." The people that have gotten out, I was like, "No way!" Like, whatever. Being stubborn, you know, because that's who I am. Sometimes is like, I need to go learn the hard way. And they were exactly right, spot on. You don't know what you're losing until you lose it. And that was such an oh man feeling of, they were right. I was wrong. I was being stubborn. I do wish, like, there's a different feeling of walking in, even though, like, you know, half the times we were never in garrison camis. We were always in op camis or something, going to the range. Yep.
Not having that of understanding that's who you were. And then it's now sitting there collecting dust. I have all my gear that I couldn't turn back in that just collects dust now. And I'll do range and I'll bring some of my gear out, which, man, it makes me feel real good. But I have to, like you said, I have to loosen it up a little bit, because as you change, your body changes too. As you get older, your body changes. No matter how hard you work out, you gain a few lbs and lose a few hairs and put them somewhere else. And once I step back into those camis, if they still fit, it's a really good feeling to kind of reminisce and then be able to give into what my next chapter is. And that's usually providing value to someone else, which makes, and that's a profile I did. I forgot to mention it, but one of the cool things that we've done at Beyond the Brotherhood is you get an assessment by a guy named Jay Harrison, who's a former NHL player. That the guy is incredibly smart. He got his doctorate in sports psychology, and he's created this really in-depth analysis that every SEAL that comes through Beyond the Brotherhood takes. And it was really empowering to me, because it took not what I should go do. Like, I can do a bunch of different assessments. This is a deep dive into who you are and find your value of what you want, like what you're going to be happy doing. At first, I pushed back. It gave me, I think it was a coach, a director of sales, and a chief learning officer. And I had no idea. And that's the thing, is like reading through these job descriptions, no clue what they were. And he laid it out and said, "No, it's not the job. I'm not here telling you go find these jobs. What I'm going to walk you through is find the commonalities in this and why these things showed up in your profile." And he told me this because you like to see other people learn and grow. And
Mhm.
it clicked for me. I was like, when I was working in Trade At, all the cool stuff I did from, being the regular SEAL teams to over at Damneck, the happiest I was when I was training guys in Trade At. And it was because I got to help them learn and grow and then go see them do great things. And that's where he unlocked in me is like, you need to find a job where you're in that capacity, because that's where you will fill your cup. If not, like if you're behind a spreadsheet all day long, you're going to be miserable. And that was
Yeah.
so important for me to understand and truly capture, like, well, yeah, that does mean something to me. And I could visualize that. And he does that for all the guys now. And that's something that we get a lot of good feedback on, is like, that's probably the most important thing, so that I know when I'm going out looking for a job in that high stress of transition, I have some direction that I can go. I can find that job that I'm going to thrive and enjoy. And then, as we all know, figure it out. High performers do very good at figuring things out, especially when they enjoy it, to put that right person in the right seat. So an organization gets a high performer, not, you want the happy Sean, not the bitter Sean of this, like, I just need to find another job. So that retention for that long-term employee, that's the job I'm going to look for. And the company gets that from that assessment. That was so cool having Jay do that for guys and build that into our onboarding process. And then once they come on board, then they get one-on-one sessions with Jay, which is truly valuable. It was such a eye-opener for me to see that trajectory where I go. Now that's kind of where I find a lot of value is, even now in my leadership development, is helping people solve problems and learn and grow and become the better version of themselves to go out and do great things. Because if you're not working together, I think that we learn that most veterans do, is like, that's teamwork. That's truly what it takes, is everybody pulling together and bettering each other. It's not about you. It's about the team. Finding that mission, that vision, and accomplishing it. That's what true teamwork is. And I discovered that through my profile. That's what Jay said that is I should be doing. And luckily, God bless, I got to do that through his profile. And now I get to do that now, or learn that through his profile and get to do it now.
That's amazing. It's one thing also when you talk about Trade At, being an instructor now, teaching people, you constantly teach people, you perfect your skill sets. I always said when I went through like Shaw's and we were doing assaults, I was like, there's a new guy, you're stressed out. You're like, oh my God, I don't want to do the tire pull and I don't want to fail in front of these guys. And I don't know nothing, but I'm supposed to know everything. And you're always stressed and you continue. And I'm sure at Green Team, and then through that, it's even a higher level of progression where you're stressed out. But when you become an instructor and you're teaching that same skill set, you become so much better and more efficient at it. And it's just that repetition of teaching that makes you better at operating. And so being able to
knowledge, you learn on a deeper level of what it takes to get through there. And that you talk about high pressure and stress, like none of us wanted to fail. It's the same thing for veterans transitioning out. We do not want to fail, but we feel like we're failing because of the different challenges that we're facing. And to me, I love to, like, I had to really learn to let go of that, to let go, even through, SEAL training or Green Team, as you mentioned, that high stress, when you learn to let go of that and focus on something that can be a lot better for you, which is success. So that mindset, shifting that mindset over to, why not me? I can do this. Like, I got to find out how to do that. Learning to let go of that. It's a challenge, but when you do that, it becomes so much better on when you find yourself being your stress behavior and how you find that stress and how you deal with that stress. So for me, I took a Berkman profile. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
So I took the Berkman. I'm red, which is Mark I motto. That's military in general. When stress happens, you're like, I'm leaning in. I'm going to make a decision, because we understand you got to make a decision. And so that's who I am on the Berkman profile. And I recognize that now. Like, when I get stressed, I'm not going to be introverted. I'm not going to kind of go in a hole. I'm actually going to, all right, I'm going to lean forward. If I'm stressed, it's because we need to get through this and see things clearly and start making decisions, because it's sometimes that's how you were taught in the military, is that you've got to make a decision. No decision is not a decision. No decision is failure. And veterans don't like to fail. And so I look at that now. When I was getting out, I took it after a while after I'd been out, and I recognized that when I was failing on finding who Sean Murphy was, I would get kind of like stressed and frustrated and be like, all right, I need to figure something out and just start making myself busy, because that's one of my behaviors is when I'm stressed, I'll get more busy. I'll just
Yeah.
find more work to try and do so I get those what I think are little victories, and that's what I look at. Learning to let go is powerful for veterans and people to find success.
But you're right. I mean, the faster you attack the situation, the faster you get through it, and it's over.
Yeah.
You know, so you can really, and those big, like you said, finding those little victories, those little wins. I mean, I'm looking for those daily. You know, they don't always come every single day unless you start seeking them. Like, hey, it doesn't have to be monumental; it can be small. All right, I'm gonna flip the script on you massively, and I'm gonna ask you an interesting question: who is your hero and why?
Who is my hero and why? Jesus Christ, man. I look at. I can't deny that in any way, shape, or form because I've had quite a journey as a life, and I lean back on that quite a bit. That no matter how lost I was, there was somebody that I could reference and turn to for guidance and help. That looking through what someone else went through, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Chosen. Man, that hit me hard on seeing all of his disciples on who he chose to follow him and be his disciples. I could see myself in every single one because the mistakes I made through life and rationalizing that now I want there's somebody said it and I think it was on a podcast that the only thing you can take to heaven are your kids. And I look at that as powerful as that is. Why can we do that is because of the most controversial event in all of our history is when Jesus walked the earth. His death and resurrection is the most controversial thing, but it's the one every single person knows. There's so many people that know something about that. And I love to read through the Bible with my kids and to understand that story. And so it really inspires me when I look at, you mentioned like those little victories. Every day I find something to be thankful for. And I thank God that I'm blessed with something in my life, like with whether it's my kids or just a moment of seeing something and just taking a pause and just saying thank you. And that to me that's why Jesus Christ is my hero is if there's somebody I'm going to look up to and I can learn from, that's an endless amount of knowledge that reading through different things. Because every time I read through a story, I learn something new. And that changed me. I wasn't always that way. I got very lost throughout my life through adversity and found myself like just being the stubborn human that I am of wandering around and doing bad things. And I know what I'm capable of, how dangerous I can be. So I don't need to tap into that anymore. I need to look at, okay, what's more important here? And I got to be a father and a husband, and what better hero and idol than Jesus Christ to be someone to look up to better yourselves every single day.
That's very powerful, man. I mean, obviously the most powerful. Nobody said that yet. And there's a lot of guys who are believers that have come on.
It's funny you say that because so there's peer pressure. And I felt this in the SEAL teams of like, well, we got to be this hard warrior. And so you don't know if like, is my faith going to be like, am I going to be judged because of this? And then when I found that there was like a hidden group of a massive amount of team guys that are followers of Jesus Christ that have faith, and it really opened my eyes to there's something that watches over us. There's something that we tap into because we have a lot of latitude to make moral decisions in our careers, and to tap into that and finding those SEALs that were very passionate about their faith. It was so refreshing to me, and it kind of I took a wrap off because I was like, I don't need to like, suppress myself and just to be good at my job so I can survive. It was like, once that I discovered that, I was so free, man. Like I love seeing that the community actually has a lot of really faith-based people. And I see that now in a lot of veterans of people that have gone through near-death experiences. They understand. Like I gave my life to Jesus. I literally on my very first operation was just so overwhelmed. And I was like, I can't handle this myself. I got to give it to somebody else. And I prayed and I gave myself, said, God, my life is in your hands. I trust you. Like, let me move forward and do what I can so I can be effective for my teammates and do good on this earth and not be a hindrance to my teammates, but also more importantly, go down a path that I may not ever mentally or spiritually recover from. But I realized you can always recover. That's why I said earlier, Jesus Christ, my hero, because he's there. He died on the cross for all the stupid things that I've done in my life and coming back to it. So it's really nice to find those SEALs that are faithful. And it gave me a opened my eyes to like, man, this was cool. I wish I'd known this earlier.
Absolutely, man. Well, I mean, that's brilliant. That is the greatest hero out there. That's something I always say is if you want to read an autobiography on some of the craziest things in the world, the Bible's sitting there waiting for you. It's the greatest gift ever.
Absolutely.
And then you have Jesus sitting there with God, and they're like, you're a Navy SEAL, and you're like, I'm sorry, what did you do?
Yeah.
It humbles you when you realize it's like, the things that Jesus did for us, for everybody, for our salvation. So that's awesome, man. That is the greatest thing I've heard on this show yet. And so thank you for sharing that, man. And keep spreading that word. We're going to push everything out for you, brother. We're going to talk about Hit to Surf and put the channel out for you so everybody can go to your site, see you, and get in touch with you. And then we're going to share all the information on UHP so people can look more into that and see your offerings and try to get in touch with you. And then also beyond the Brotherhood to make sure that everybody sees the well-rounded outside of the service Sean Murphy. And man, for somebody who was trying to figure it out 6 months prior to getting out of the service, you've turned it around and really you're killing it, man. So
well, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's always exciting for me to have guys like you on the show because you've done a lot more than me. I look up to you as a mentor, and seeing that you're performing at a high level it makes me want to perform at a higher level for myself. Something I always used to say about Howick and Buds is like, this guy to my left and my right may be faster than me, stronger than me. Usually nobody's better looking than me, but that's besides the point. It's usually faster, stronger, harder, whatever. But why can't I be as good as them today? Mm-hmm. And so I always try to level up to somebody that I'm looking at as a mentor to say, could I be as good as them today? And the answer is yes, I can do that. Now, I may not be better than them. It's just like, I'm not going to beat Usain Bolt in the race, but
well, I'll leave you with this. Comparison denies fulfillment.
Interesting.
Think about that. Comparison denies fulfillment. Those people to your left and to your right see the same in you. So don't worry about comparison so much and just look forward to what you can do, because that's the most detrimental thing you can do is start comparison to others, because you're not going to appreciate what you've done and really get behind that energy that you've created.
Appreciate that, man. I'm going to dig into that. Solid words. Sean Murphy, a.k.a. Murph. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Frogman.